Hey everyone, it is Sleepy Reader, aka Damien. This is my comic book thoughts video in the form of a super subjective comic book countdown. I read 13 comic books that I picked up on June 15th at my comic book shop. Today's June 22nd, so I actually have a whole nother set of comics that I picked up today. I'll show you those at the end, I guess. And last week I was Grumpy Reader, and I didn't expect to be Grumpy Reader again this week, but I totally was. I think there's three factors. One, at least most of the art was quite good, which I complained a lot about last week. But one, there was a lot of comics where I couldn't remember enough of what had happened in the previous comic, and or the writer just let things get really confusing and didn't fill us in enough. And between it being a whole month since the last issue and them playing it coy with what's going on, certain writers in particular, the reading experience became, what's the point? What am I reading here? What's going on? And I was left kind of just enjoying the art and maybe making up a little bit of a story in my head. Now, eventually, towards the end of this list, the lower down ones I certainly enjoyed a lot. Another factor in my grumpiness is I threw out my back a week ago, and I've slowly been getting better, trying to figure out the best ways of like stretching it and going for short walks, but not long walks, which seems to help loosen it up. And other techniques. I had this happen to me once before, I don't know, 6 or 8 years ago. And I remember I went to the doctor and they gave me a muscle relaxant pill. And it was so powerful that I was kind of unpleasantly out of commission, just laying in bed for like 18 hours or something. And A, I didn't really want to experience that again. And B, I have a lot of responsibilities taking care of doing stuff as the home parent while my wife still works like 7 days a week until midnight every day. So anyway, she's the workaholic and I'm the at-home parent. But so if I'm out of commission too much, that causes her a problem. But the main thing is I would rather do it without the drugs. And I've started to wonder if it would help to see a chiropractor. Anyway, it's mostly better. And I know there are people with all kinds of ongoing back problems, and this was a reminder to me of what they're going through because it limits how much you can do in a day, right? It seems like everything's more exhausting. The pain is kind of distracting. You just can't, something about back pain, you just can't put it out of your mind and forget about it for a few hours. At least I couldn't with this particular pain. It seems like it started as a lower back spasm, but I don't know what caused it. Anyway, too much personal information. But that's just all part of this is my comic book diary. And I think that may have been a factor in my grumpiness. But I do think that the writers of several of these comic books should have thought a little bit more about how adrift the reader might end up being. So speaking of adrift, in Kill Lock, number 4 of the Artisan Wraith, I was particularly disappointed because of how much I love the original Kill Lock series. And this is the follow-up to it, a sequel. And I'd been struggling with it a bit, and then in issue 3, I thought, oh, now I'm getting into the groove of it. I'm hooking in to what's going on in the characters of these robots, because it's in an entire galaxy of robots with no humans mentioned or other organic beings mentioned, just lots of different kinds of robots. But in this issue, I felt adrift. Now, maybe if I dug up the last issue and reread it, I would figure out what's going on. I mean, I have the most general idea of what's going on, but robots were talking about things, and I didn't understand the significance of it. The big climax was all talking too between two sets of robots, and I didn't know what happened. So I was quite pissed by all this, and it made me start actually getting more critical of the artwork, which might be like 80%, 80% Photoshop, color play, and and 20% drawing at the most. I mean, you got to accept that, and there are some very cool effects in here, but yeah, I'm trying to remember if it seemed like there was. I felt like I used to think of Killock as a painted comic, totally, but now I'm sort of seeing that there's these almost minimal kind of drawings which have then been juiced up in Photoshop. One thing that I thought about this was you have the robots in a universe where no one even knows or ever mentions the existence of humans or other biological animals, saying the word shit all the time. One of the fun things about science fiction is think about what the language would be in your science fictional situation. Robots, come on, there's got to be some other expression than shit. Oh shit, they're dropping bombs, things like that. Anyhow, do I drop Killock with only 2 issues left to go? I assume only 2 issues left to go, based on what the first volume is like. I'm definitely dropping this one. I put in at number 12, Nightmare Country. Should be great. I mean, Neil Gaiman universe of the Sandman universe, having James Tynion play with the toys, the nightmares. He loves horror, and particularly the Corinthian with his teeth-like eyes, or his eyes that are teeth instead of eyeballs, and the appearance of one of my favorite artists, Francisco Francavilla. I don't think they made much use of Francavilla's appearance. It was like, oh, here's some extra stuff that James Tynion wrote in his notebook. Let's put that down along with some pictures. I'm being really bitter here. There might have been some threads here that I missed from the previous issue that made it a little more frustrating. But generally, I just had the sense of a comic that is drifting about, and it just, okay, let's throw another disturbing serial killer like character into the mix to make it feel like the plot's advancing. Maybe there are interesting things going on here, like there's this conservative billionaire who I suspect may also be a serial killer, torturer type, but I'm not sure. And I'm not sure if we even met him in previous issues. But some angels telling him he's like a chosen one or something. And when the apocalypse comes, I don't know. I don't get it. I didn't get any of it. And I was just too frustrated. And I don't know how many issues this is supposed to go, but I think I'm dropping it. I need to drop more comics anyway. I've got to start. I'm gonna start focusing a little more on reading from trades or just reading all my back issues. Okay, I say that, but then I love picking up comics on Wednesday. Speaking of love and hate, we've got in at my number 11 spot, Seven Sons. Art by Jay Lee, which is why I bought this. And I should say by Jay Lee and June Chung, because I think this is the perfect marriage of color and line art. And I think that Jay and June are a married couple, and they work together fantastically. Jay's art needs color. I don't think it's stuff that would be fulfilling in black and white, for instance, or he'd have to add a lot more. But the two work together perfectly. I mean, I often complain about color, and this is an example of modern coloring and modern art styles gone perfectly. But I pre-ordered this, put it on my pull list ahead of time because of Jay Lee, and I was confident. Jay Lee, great artist, top guy in the game. Surely he's going to be linked up with at least decent writers. And now I'm not sure. They might be decent. There's 2 writers, I believe. Maybe I shouldn't name them since I'm dissing them. I haven't heard of either of them. they might be decent writers, and they might have written this first issue like a prelude or a prologue, like in a novel, where you read the prologue, there's some interesting things that are happening, but you don't get your hooks into the story yet. It's like just setting the mood a little bit. So all the elements that are shown in here give me nothing to sort of relate to. There's 7 sons. They're like clones of each other, but each born from a different family. And there's these prophecies about them. So we're in a alternate 1998 where everyone's really into religion, to the point where Las Vegas has changed its name to New Canaan, which of course New Canaan's a city or a town in Connecticut, I'm pretty sure, and that's the first thing I thought of. But anyway, so even Las Vegas has changed its name to something religious. And my wife is texting me, and I'm gonna just live answer her. It's been a day. I already shot a whole version of this video when someone phoned me with an emergency, and I stopped, and then I decided to start over. So anyway, it could be that the writers will really click in, or it's just kind of their worked out amateur alternate history with religion in America, and there's not really a story of the sort with characters and development and suspense of the sort that will interest me. I don't know. I'll definitely try issue 2, and I feel like I got my money's worth because I really love the art. When Jay Lee is on, he's really on, and it's just cool because he's a very unique artist. There may be a few more artists who look like him now than before. Does my wife say what she wants? No, she hasn't answered now that I answered what seemed like a pressing question. I am grumpy. I am very grumpy. In at number 10, Man or Black. This is a Colin Bunn, Brian Hurt, Tyler Crook affair. It's now drawn by Brian Hurt too, rather than just co-written, and colors painted over by Tyler Crook. It looks fantastic. It's been a slow burn. It's been something that's intrigued me, but I'm losing faith in it. Although it's listed as issue 3, it's really issue 7 in the story, because they went 4 issues and then renumbered again. Why? I don't know. But it's all one story, not like 2 stories in the same world or anything like that. Okay, well, I'm gonna stop, do something for my wife, come back and stitch this together. I'll probably be grumpier than ever, and hopefully I'll remember to tell you a little bit more about Man or Black. Or I'll just say it now before I edit, before I shut up. So basically, it just doesn't feel like the story's going to wrap up anytime soon. It feels dragged out. And as it drags out longer, you feel more annoyed at the missing information. And this is a Colin Bunn thing. He often just does not want to give a lot of information to the audience. Sometimes that works. Sometimes that just makes me drop his comics. But I keep trying more Colin Bunn comics, as you'll see in a moment. Okay, so I resisted this time the temptation to start all the way from the beginning again. Because usually I do my videos in one take. I don't edit. And if I start to goof up early on in the video, I shut it down and start over. It doesn't happen too much anymore, but every once in a while, I start over and start over and start over. So I'm often not happy with the direction I'm taking, but I usually try to just roll with it anyway. So in at number 9 is Tales of Harrow County. I think this may be Tales of Harrow County Volume 2, in fact. But I'm not sure. I'm a little confused about that. Another Colin Bunn and to some extent Tyler Crook creation or comic. This issue is written by Bunn, art by Emily Schnall, and just lettering by Tyler Crook. And I really liked issue 1, and now I'm starting to feel grumpy about it with issue 2. I'm not sure. I maybe because after Man or Black, I'm feeling untrusting of Colin Bunn, And I'm not sure what's going on here. I can't remember why the main character is at this party of rich people during the Depression, and then the rest of the comic is just kind of mysterious goings on with supernatural looking creatures down in the sewers. With some, it's not like there's plenty of interesting elements with some kind of lost children with magical abilities being kept in a room by the rich guy who's holding the party. Um, I'm not sure what our lead character knows about magic and what everybody else knows about magic in this world. I don't think we're still in Harrow County. I think we're in something like New York, like maybe someone's moved from Harrow County to New York or some other big city. Is there a big city in Harrow County? I still haven't read many of the original Harrow County books. I have them on a bookshelf somewhere, and I need to get them. So I think there was another Tales from Harrow County that I read. So that's why I think this is or maybe it was called something else. I think this is a volume 2, and that one was kind of cool, but kind of ended in a not didn't feel like a complete ending. So, but this one I can't remember if there's any connection between that other Tales from Harrow County and this one. I don't think so. Um, so again, Colin Bunn's doing it to me. He's leaving me wondering if any of my questions will be answered if I stick with this series. Really cool art, a little rougher around the edges than her previous work. So maybe Emily Schnall is being rushed a little, or maybe she's less comfortable with these large party scenes and such. I'm not sure. But I still like her art, and it has really cool kind of watercolor effects. I don't know if it's actual watercolor or done on a computer. But when done the way it is in these sort of the Tyler Crook style of watercolor art, very effective and looks very good on the printed page, which is important to me. Okay, in at number 8, I'm getting to the comics that I'm getting to the point of comics that I'm giving a little more. I'm being more flexible on and less grumpy, but I still am a little grumpy about them. There is Endangered, a new science fiction comic from Blood Moon Comics. Never heard of Blood Moon Comics before. Just saw this on the shelf, flipped through it. I like the look of the art. I like science fiction, so I picked it up. I'd say it has a bit of a familiar science fiction feel to it, which isn't an all bad thing. There's a nuclear holocaust on Earth, and survivors are up in a space station. There's a team of scientists who are going to work on the space station to mitigate the radiation poisoning of the planet. And the other members of the crew get cryogenically frozen so that when planet Earth is livable again, I guess they can go back and repopulate it. And maybe there'll be survivors. I'm not sure. I get the impression they don't think there'll be human survivors on Earth afterwards. But then, and that's all well and good. It's kind of familiar. You got your military character, you got your science fiction scenario, you got nuclear war, you got scientists and military people. But then, surprisingly, when they go to wake up the people, let me see if I can. Almost all of them die, and they adjust the process. And our one hero, one military man, as far as I know, he's the only one who was in cryogenic sleep who survived. So how are they going to repopulate the planet? Why do they still plan to? They seem to have a small group of other younger people. Who these people are, they don't explain. They must have been born on the satellite because they look like they're maybe, I don't know, 20s or 30s, or maybe a little older, some of them. It's hard to say. But are they enough to repopulate the planet? The plan just seems to go forward. So if you don't get too picky about that, but I can't help it. When I read science fiction, I look at all the angles, or at least some of the angles of what the story is supposed to be about, and say, does that make sense? But despite that, I definitely want to try issue 2 and see what turns up in this story when our kind of military people go back to planet Earth to reconnoiter, I guess. Maybe, although it's mostly well written on the surface and definitely good art, maybe there's some things that the writer, because he or she's not so experienced, forgot to put in the story, like that there are actually other people still cryogenically frozen, or they have, eggs and sperm frozen somewhere to reproduce with, or something. Anyway, interesting comic. Not the greatest in the world, but from a very small publisher that I've never ever heard of before. Actually, it was pretty impressive. From another small publisher, but is Behemoth, which I've been reading a lot of Behemoth books, is Blind Alley #2. I read #1 and I wasn't fully satisfied. There's the size of it. It's smaller than normal size. It's clearly, I'm almost 100% sure this is a translation of a Spanish graphic novel, and this was its original portions, but probably bigger. And so they've shrunk it down. And they've translated it with what seems to be a very literal translation. So often the grammar doesn't make sense, and the intent of the language isn't clear. Is this irony? Is this metaphorical talk? Or is this, what's going on? Or is this just replicating some kind of blue collar or below blue collar slang? Because I think we're amongst the criminal class, or the nearly criminal class of this city. Our hero was involved in some kind of crime organization in another part of Spain, has come back to the city, and is now just hanging out with his friends, looking for jobs, gets into an accident, spends some time in a hospital, looks for some more jobs, sees this woman who he used to know, and she has a kid, and she's now a prostitute. And then, if I understood correctly, he asks the prostitute, or that woman, who I think is a prostitute, out on a date, and she accepts. But I assume it's just like a date, not a date with a prostitute. But maybe it's not the same woman. In other words, I'm not, even though it's just slice of life, the details are a little fuzzy. The reason why I even put it as high as #7 is I just got a kick out of it being so different from other comics I read, and the curiosity and the enjoyment of this kind of different mode of art and color. It's quite cool. So I will probably pick up issue 3. I don't have it on my pull list. I might or might not, depending on my mood. I'm just sort of curious where this is going, even though there's stuff I don't get. It was particularly weird when it seemed like he just got into just for no reason that I could understand, he got into a horrible motorcycle accident while trying out for a job as a delivery person. But they never really talk about it afterwards. They just show him like in the hospital with pins in his legs and stuff. Regular Jesus and you are better, or Jesus. Yes, so there's an example. Regular Jesus, is that a greeting? Is that translated literally from Spanish? And you are better? Yes, with the painkillers, the pain goes away a bit. So it's just, the language reads weird. So in an interesting book. I wish Behemoth would give you some background on the books they're publishing, because I'm really curious. Okay, still a lot to go. In at #6 was Cobra, which is this weird indie book, self-published again. For a while it was published by Image, and I don't know if the sales were bad or something else, but he decided to go back to self-publishing it and selling it on Etsy. He now sells subscriptions to it on Etsy. Very cool artwork. do not know what was going on. And I've read Cobra on and off from the very beginning. And I can't keep track of all the characters and which side they're on. And there's just a lot of characters showing up in here. It's like it's seeing the world of superheroes through some really weird, distorted indie lens. He's been doing, this is issue 43. He's been doing this a long time, Michel Fiffe. He does everything. And he's very good at this weird thing he does. And so I enjoyed it a lot, but I really do wish he would, again, give me a little more. And maybe I'm partially to blame. Maybe I need to read 3 or 4 Cobra in a row and really keep track of the characters. Every few issues, I'll start feeling like I'm on top of it a bit more, and then I'll lose the thread again. But definitely loving the artwork, and that's why I get. As long as the artwork keeps me going, I think I'll be supporting Cobra, because I definitely like the idea of this. It's almost like a fanzine, right? A fan strip zine like we used to have back in the old days. Okay, in at number 5, hardback, first volume of sorts in the Bone Orchard mythos by Jeff Lemire, Andrea Sorrentino, and Dave Stewart. And this one's called The Passageway. Do we learn what the Bone Orchard mythos is? No. Is it kind of Cthulhu, H.P. Lovecraft-esque? Definitely. Is the art super photoshopped by Andrea Sorrentino? Totally. But it is such a magnificent work of Photoshop art, photo collaged art, you might say, that I'm kind of getting over myself in terms of that and just going with it. I really enjoyed the artwork in this one. I hear people say they've reread it and then it makes more sense, so I'm definitely planning to reread it. I've been slow to read my comics whatsoever, so it's a big commitment to come back and reread this. But I do plan to, because I enjoyed it, but I couldn't say why, other than just liking the art and liking the vague Cthulhu-ness of it all. I think what really holds it back, because in horror, I don't mind a certain kind of vagueness. What really held it back to keep it from like being at the top of the pile is the characters were still mostly ciphers to me, with, you know, moments of interestingness, like this older woman who lives completely by herself, and her brother's the ferryman. And so, but I think that's supposed to be more significant in terms of the Boneyard mythos than her character, perhaps. But, and of course, H.P. Lovecraft's stories were not focused on character. However, when he did it, it was all new. Now it's kind of familiar. So I have mixed feelings about this. I'll keep an eye on the whole Bone Orchard mythos and probably, you know, get some of it. I would really appreciate being grounded a little more. At least have some mention of this boneyard. Bone Orchard, not boneyard. And so maybe eventually we'll figure it out. Maybe eventually, you know, in their science fiction book, Primordial, they never really gave us any kind of clue in the end. You just had to accept, oh, this is like 2001: A Space Odyssey, basically, and go with it. And I guess here you have to say, oh, this is like At the Mountains of Madness, and just go with it. So not, you know, if you're going to copy someone, copying H.P. Lovecraft's not a bad place to go. And lots of people have gone there before. A different kind of horror, although it has a nice visuals that would work for H.P. Lovecraft, is A Town Called Terror. This is the top 4. These are ones I really enjoyed. Town Called Terror, issue 3, I put it number 4. The reason why I didn't rise above the others, the 3 others ahead of it, is because it is so decompressed. It's one of those super decompressed stories where you only learn a little bit more each issue. But it's a fun ride. It's a cool ride. Really cool art. Szymon Kudranski is definitely an artist to keep an eye out for. I feel like I've probably seen his art somewhere before, maybe on another Steve Niles horror comic. I'm not sure. It's very red. It's very, very red. But I don't mind it. I'm enjoying the redness. And I guess when we're outside of the town called Terror in the, quote, rest of the world, it's more black and white kind of world, grays and other shades. So this will probably be, I'm assuming it'll be a series of trades when it is completed. And when it is completed, I will probably recommend it. But of course, at the moment, I can only judge it by the first 3 issues. And I'm really enjoying it. I always enjoy Norse mythology. Sometimes this comes out at number 1. There's another excellent book. This is volume 3. It's the Dark Horse way, I guess. You just stop and start and just make a new volume for no particular reason. This is volume 3 of Norse mythology, each volume being 6 issues. So this is the penultimate issue, and I think it's the penultimate chapter of the entire process because we're at the beginning of Ragnarok. And it's very intense and wonderfully illustrated by P. Craig Russell. I love that picture there. And also the fact that P. Craig Russell is coming to the front. Or no, actually, I'm sorry. It's not P. Craig Russell's. It's still P. Craig Russell's. Oh, the letters are by Galen. I'm sorry. It is all art by P. Craig Russell and color by Laverne Kandinsky. More artists should use Laverne Kandinsky's color because it is nice, classic coloring that just does the job and looks good. Very few colorists just do that anymore. But it's fun to read, but maybe I'm less enthusiastic about the Ragnarok part of Norse mythology than all the stories leading up to Ragnarok. Those interest me more, in a way. Just because I know Ragnarok's the end and I know what's supposed to happen with Ragnarok. But this is beautiful. I'm just having fun flipping the pages and looking at the art and the color. So it's like the first half of Ragnarok and the second half will be the following issue. And maybe it's the novelty of numbers 1, that was at number 3, of numbers 1 and 2 that put them ahead of Norse mythology. It was a very tight race, you might say. So at number 2, I'm putting Eric Powell's new anthology series up for number 2. It's called the Albatross Exploding Funny Books, plural. I don't know why. 48-page first issue, so I don't know if that means it won't always be 48 pages. They charged $6 for it, but I definitely felt like I was getting my money's worth. And I don't mind paying the extra for some, sort of auteur, unique artist doing his unique work for a small audience. So it says duck-themed first issue. It made me suddenly realize, a lot of ducks show up in his books, especially I think in The Goon. But anyway, it starts with a joke ad for a movie called Toilet of Terror, the toilet that takes no shit, now available on VHS. And then there's a story about La Diabla and Clean Vachine. And I previously don't know the La Diabla character, so I don't know if she is new or just one I don't know yet in the Eric Powell universe. But so what it looks like is each issue will have mostly continuing stories about his major characters. So there's a hillbilly story, but each story is a slight variation on what Eric Powell does. So the hillbilly is all in pencils, and it's really beautiful to look at. And it's a fairy tale, a Appalachian fairy tale, you might say, and it's pretty cool. But it's hard to tell. It left me wanting more, which I guess is a good thing. I'll definitely have to get the next thing. And then, here's an ad for Ointment Pot. And then Lester of the Lesser Gods, a favorite of mine, starts off with an ad, which what looks like a promotional ad, like those Hostess Twinkies ads in comics, with Lester selling ponchos. Uh, and he does cross out, like here where it says Jesus fucking Christ, he crossed out the fucking. So I'm not sure. I think he's willing to say that kind of thing in other places. But then instead of ending with the ad, the ad for the Punchos leads into the plot where Lester talks with his father Odin, and Odin sends him on a mission with a golden duck robot to lead the way to fight or go against Will Fry, the technomancer guy. So I really, probably because I am Lester. I like Lester, and that it's a to be continued story also, looking like a lot of fun. And then we get a Goon story, which is also to be continued, and that is pencils, inks, and gray washes. So we got some things in color, some in pencil, some in ink and wash. I think the Goon story might have been my least favorite, although it did have this funny character who just walks up to people and says, "I sex you," which is disturbing. So I do wish that Eric Powell had some back matter. I'd love to hear his version of Stan Lee's soapbox or something, or some other kind of matter where he talks a little bit directly to us, the readers, who have paid $6 for this comic. Still, a lot of fun. I hope this is a successful project for him. Anthologies, short story, it's not short stories actually, but anthology type collections have not traditionally done well in the United States market. Finally, at number 1, and I feel exhausted just getting here, sorry for such a long video, is GILT number 3, Guilt, the Guild of Independent Lady Temporalists, from Ahoy Comics. Not a great cover, in my opinion, but a great issue if you've already been reading along. The wacky, zany humor, aided and abetted by strong, but maybe not my favorite art. There's definitely kind of a digital quality to the art. I mean, it's all lines and color in that sense, but it seems almost too perfect or something. So I feel like some kind of technique probably on a digital screen was used when drawing it. And occasionally you see something photoshopped right in. But overall, I enjoy the art, and it's a really clever character, rich with characters, rich with humor, story of this weird form of time travel where people can time travel back into the past of their own selves in their old body, but with their new consciousness as they try to change time. And the plot thickens here with more people who know about the time travel and people who are trying to stop it, and more connections to the old apartment building that the main character lived in at the beginning of the story. The apartment building itself that she lives in has something to do with all this time travel. And characters whose entire lives have now been affected by this time travel, by like meeting a time traveler and then 40 years later meeting them again. And anyway, lots of clever stuff. I have no problem going from issue to issue to issue between the months, but I also greatly look forward to rereading this all together when it's finished. Again, I sort of feel like it's something that I don't know how big of an audience there is for it. It's great for me, obviously, from what I've been saying. And it rings a lot of bells, both because, I'm old. I would love to, or I think about things in my life I'd like to redo. I remember the 70s. I remember the 90s. All of that makes it really interesting to me. It's written by Alyssa Whitney, who is also a novelist and worked as an editor at Vertigo at some point. And I just think she's brilliant. I'm just in love with that comic book. So I complain, it's a $4.99 comic. I did not buy other Ahoy comics that came out this week. I am trade rating Ahoy comics, but I'm still glad I paid the extra $1 for this one. Okay, since I said I would do it, despite this being a long video, let me show you what I picked up today at the comic book store. And I might hop over to Excalibur later today and double dip. I did not go to Words with Pictures, which is normally my second shop, because I think that I found everything I wanted pretty much at my comic book store, but there might be some stuff at Excalibur. Anyway, so I got Cowboy Bebop #4. I strongly suspect this is the final issue. We'll see. Like that cover. Haven't really liked the covers before. I've been loving the interior art, and hopefully this will wrap up good. Issue 2 so far was the fantastic issue. Usagi Yojimbo, the final issue of Lone Goat and Kid, which was really just a collection of old Usagi stories. And I think finally in issue 6 we'll actually meet Lone Goat and Kid. So, and I have grown to love the covers by, what's his name? Eric Peterson? Someone Peterson. David Peterson, who I guess is the artist of Mouse Guard or one of those mouse books. So I should look for that. It is a weird transition from Peterson's art to Sakai's art. I like them both, but I sometimes wonder at the wisdom of a cover like this, because I did hear someone, I think it was Chaos and Comics, wishing that the whole comic was drawn by Peterson. And how much thought, well, certainly not at Marvel or DC, but probably in indies, you got to think about the mood that the cover puts the reader in before, so that they're in a certain space when they open the book and look at the picture, look at the first page. Anyway, here's Fables, The Black Force Part 2. I enjoyed the story and loved the art of Part 1. I've not read all of Fables. I think I read the first 2 trades. And then I read some of the offshoot stories, like the one that was about the women fairy tales, Fairest. And there's another one that I read, another spin-off that I read. So I've always meant to come back and read all of Fables, but here we are. Haven't done that. The cover art is not as good to me as the interior. And does that sell it to you? Does that make you want to read it? I don't know. Maybe some art like this would make me want to read it instead. But be that what it's may, I know what's inside, and that's why I pick it up. Newburn's art does match. The cover match the inside. I've actually I have 3 issues of Newburn that need reading. I was really enjoying Newburn. Hopefully I will continue to enjoy it since I have invested in more issues. I'm excited to see what Tyler Crook does on his own. Tyler Crook being the artist behind Harrow County and some other really cool books, is now writing his own comic all on his own. So, ironically, this character looks a lot like the characters in Black Manor or whatever that one was called. So that should be cool. I am 1 issue behind now on Aerosmith, and this I think is it issue 6? Yes, issue 6. So it wraps up the run, although I've read it's a 12-issue run, so I guess they're probably going to do the renumbering thing and go to issue 1 again, or maybe they'll do issue 12. And I think this is the cover of the trade. I've been having fun reading this. I'm not sure if it's as good as the original volume from 20 years ago. This one that's available now in hardback. But we'll see. I'm hoping to, I had a discussion about that original series with Eric from Longbox Review, and I hope to reel him in and have us talk about it again at some point. I picked up this reprint of classic sci-fi pulp comics. At first glance, it looks very Golden Age, as you would expect. It's printed on what feels like, it's the sound of it, feels like newsprint, which supposedly you can't get anymore, so it must be some kind of paper that is close to newsprint. And issue 3 of Corollary. I loved issue 1. I liked issue 2. I felt like they crammed too much into issue 2, and it's only a 4-issue series. So we'll see how all of that stuff crammed into issue 2 pays off in issue 3. Nice, unique artwork from Robert Ahmed, and he does his own coloring, which also is quite unique. I think maybe he colors directly on the page with watercolors. I'm not positive. So this definitely just has points for its uniqueness, but it's been fun so far. Speaking of fun, Heavy Metal Drummer. Again with Behemoth, they don't put the issue numbers on the covers. The only way to know the issue number is to, again, look at that computer thing, which I think is really stupid of them. But maybe they think it'll make people pick up issue 5, even though they haven't picked up the other issues because they don't realize it's issue 5. I do think if Behemoth has any flaw, I mean, every comic book company has flaws, but they could have a bit of an editorial presence where they speak a little bit to the reader and let them know a little bit of context. So I don't know how many issues there is left to this. There must be at least another issue because that looks like the cover for the next issue. Anyway, this is issue 5. I loved issues 1 through 3, and I liked issue 4, but that seemed to be a resting point issue in a way. And Silver Coin, I decided to put this back on my pull list. At one point, this cover is hard for me to even look at. This is a James Tynion script. I like Michael Walsh's art, and I really like the issues written by Michael Walsh. The other ones seem up and down to me, but I decided it was worth it just to get them all anyway. I had decided at one point to just buy ones depending on who the author is and leave it at that. Wow, that is an interesting cover to Shaolin Cowboy, Next of Kin, Cruel to be Kin, number 2. I really like that. He looks more unshaven than usual. Wow, and there must be a lot here because the story starts on the inside cover. Does it go all the way to the outside cover? Almost. So I was a bit critical of the coloring on this comic, and at a glance, it looks like they have improved. They have lightened up the coloring somewhat. So maybe Dave Stewart saw what the print version looked like, or maybe it's just luck, of the last issue and has fixed things up a bit. I almost didn't buy this one. I saw stuff online that made me very interested, though. It's a $5 comic. It is a little thicker. Beware the Eye of Odin. I don't really know anything about this, but I am interested in things based on Norse mythology. I like the look of the art that I saw online. And when I got to the comic store and felt that it was kind of a thicker, heavier comic, I thought, well, maybe I should occasionally spend the $5, so I did. And last but not least, I bought another issue of Little Dot in Dotland. Those who followed me for a really long time on YouTube might remember that I am collecting Little Dot, my favorite of the Harvey characters, probably my favorite children's character overall in comics that I can think of. So that's it. I have dragged you through the mud of my comic book diary, and if you've made it to the end and have to take a shower, thank you for coming along for the ride, and I'll talk to you again next time.
Let's go $18,000. At $17,000, let's go to $18,000. One of the most classic stories of all time. These are the color guys. Let's go $18,000. Have 17. Do I hear 18? I will say fair warning at 17,000. 17,000.